there was a child who, I think he was about 12, diagnosis I believe was autism, and he was engaging in fairly severe self-injury that occurred several times a day. In fact, maybe several times per hour. Not every incident was severe, but it ranged in severity, so sometimes it was severe. But the child could have benefited for some temporary placement away from home in a treatment facility. But we try to keep the child at home usually, and then the state provides services to keep the child in the home rather than having to go to a group home or an institution. And that's what the parents wanted, and that's what the parents got. And with the help of their support coordinator, like their case manager for the child, they got an agency to come into the home and provide wraparound home and behavior analysis services. And this was done through the Florida Medicaid waiver program. And the Florida Medicaid waiver program pays for behavior analysis services, and then it also pays for something called behavioral assistant services. The behavior analyst is the person who designs the plan and teaches people to implement the plan, evaluates the plan, revises the plan, and only works with the child to teach people or to make sure the procedures work right and so forth. And then the behavioral assistant, in some cases, is needed to help the families because the families can't be implementing the procedure, especially not all the time. So in some cases of severe behavior problems, the state will pay through their Medicaid waiver program for a behavioral assistant to be kind of the child's one-on-one, okay, for a certain number of hours per day. And so in this case, the state authorized mega hours for this kid, but because part of what they do is dictate that there be a fading of services, because ABA services are supposed to be short-term and you're supposed to fade them out. So they funded the case for a year, but they funded it in every 3 months. They had a different level of service funded. So the first month they had quite a lot of hours of behavior analysis to make sure that the plan was right for the child and that everything was going well. And I don't remember exactly how many hours a week they funded, but it might have been even 8 or 10 hours a week of actual behavior analysis services, which in a case like this, at least for the first few weeks, you might need it. You want the behavior analyst to be in there making sure everything's done correctly and making changes in the plan until things work and so forth. And then they funded the case at 40 hours a week of behavioral assistance services. And that was for the first 3 months. Then they cut things down for the second set of 3 months so that the behavior analyst worked fewer hours. I don't remember whether it was 5 hours or 6 hours a week. But the behavioral assistant, instead of 40 hours a week, was 30 hours a week. And then the third set of 3 months, they funded it so that the behavior analyst might have been there maybe 3-4 hours a week or something, and the behavioral assistant 20 hours a week, 20 instead of 30, so it went from 40 to 30 to 20. And then for the last 3 months of the approval, then the behavior analyst was perhaps only 2 hours a week, and then the behavioral assistant was only 10 hours a week. So it went from 40 to 30 to 20 to 10. Okay, and that what approved, and this company provided the services. They had a behavioral assistance in the home, and they had a BCABA who was the actual person working in the home providing the hours of behavior analysis services, and then the agency owner and head, who was a board certified behavior analyst, supervised supposedly the BCABA. I say supposedly because you'll see how this case progresses. But that was what they were supposed to do, supervise the BCABA, because BCABAs should practice under the supervision of a BCBA, right? I hope you're all in agreement with that. Okay. Now, I hadn't been familiar with this case until the agency head and the BCABA came to present the case at a meeting of a committee of which I was a member. I have been the chair of that committee for a number of years, but now I was just a committee member at the time of this case. And it's a committee that reviews treatment plans for their soundness and for their adherence to the law. And it also reviews funding, appropriate levels of funding, and make recommendations about how the case should be funded. Other states might have that, some might not, but in Florida we have such mechanisms in place. If you're going to access Medicaid funding, you have to go through those committees. But anyway, they came to present the case, and part of the Florida rule and the assurances that people sign is that if you're going to provide behavior analysis services under circumstances such as this one, that you have to graft your data at least every other week, and that you have to review that data and then make decisions based on that data, and that once a month you submit your progress note with the graphs attached to the support coordinator, who is sort of overseeing the services in a way. Even though they're not a behavior analyst, they're like the case manager. They're supposed to see that the services are being provided. But anyway, and then of course when you come to a meeting like this one, you provide copies of the graphs ahead of time to the committee members, and if not ahead of time, you bring them to the meeting. But when I was looking at the report, it was just some kind of like the child seems to be doing better. His SIB has improved over the last year, but however, it's not down to 0 yet, and the child needs services continued because we haven't gotten it down to 0 yet, and it might be that he would benefit from additional hours instead of only 10 hours a week of behavioral assistant, because we want to be able to decrease the SIB even more, blah blah blah. Anyway, that's what the report said, more or less.